Let's look at the first application of Matthew chapter 24:15 in regards to the abomination of desolation or the papal supremacy. Not until the Bible student has a clear conception of the dual application of Matthew chapter 24:15 and is knowledgeable of the first application, which is the historical record of the fall of Jerusalem in 66 to 70 AD, can he comprehend the second application in its reference to the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet? As given in Daniel 12:11, only as he gets a full view of both the first and second of these dual applications can he understand the three timelines of Daniel 12 and the warning contained within. Therefore, to get a clear picture of Matthew 24:15, it is necessary to understand the language or terminology used by Jesus, review the historical record of the fall of Jerusalem. And that's what we're going to get into right now. The historical setting of Matthew chapter 24:15 in regards to the abomination of desolation or the papal supremacy or Roman supremacy. When the revolt against Rome broke out in the spring of AD 66, Jerusalem saw much bloodshed under Gaius Florus, the last procurator of Judea. Jews began to massacre Gentiles and Gentiles the Jews, until a semblance of order and government was gone. Cestus Gaius, the legate of Syria, took command of Judah, and in the autumn of AD 66 marched against Jerusalem. Although at one point he penetrated as far as the northern wall of the temple, he was repelled and for some unknown reason retreated, losing many of his soldiers on the march. The Christians, heeding the warning of Jesus in Matthew 24:15-20, took the opportunity to leave Jerusalem and found refuge at Pella in Perea. From the late AD 66 until the spring of AD 70, Jerusalem did not suffer any direct attacks of the Romans. Vespasian, upon his arrival in the country in AD 67, followed the plan of reducing the country to submission, allowing the various political factions in Jerusalem to fight against and weaken one another. In AD 69, when Vespasian was proclaimed emperor, most of Palestine was in Roman hands, but had been converted into a wilderness. Titus Vespasian's son took over the command of the army and immediately made preparations to capture Jerusalem, the strong capital city of Judea. This is 8 BC 560 of the Spirit of Prophecy. Let's take a look at a definition of the holy place of Matthew 24:15. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet standing in the holy place, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let them which be in Judea flee into the mountains. Matthew 24:15-16. What was the holy place in which the Roman armies, the abomination of desolation, were to stand? While it is true that in 66 AD, Cestus Gaius penetrated as far as the northern wall of the temple in Jerusalem, he did not enter into the temple itself, not into the holy place, nor the most holy place of its sanctuary. He was repelled and for some unknown reason retreated. This is the Spirit of Prophecy 8 BC 560. If the Roman armies did not at that time enter into the holy place of the temple, what was the holy place on which they stood in fulfillment of Matthew 24:15? In Luke chapter 21 verses 20, Jesus said, "And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then flee." The word compassed infers that these Romans would surround or be outside of Jerusalem. What holy place was outside of Jerusalem? The prophet explains it this way. Great Controversy 26. It says, when the idolatrous standards of Romans should be set up in the holy ground or holy place, which extended some furlongs outside the city walls, then the followers of Christ were to find safety in flight. The question then follows, what exactly was the holy ground outside the walls of the city? What made it holy? What was its purpose? And this is the explanation about the holy ground. The city fathers of Jerusalem were strict Sabbath keepers. They made certain that the gates of Jerusalem were locked at the beginning of the Sabbath so that no merchandising or vendors could carry on business within the city during the holy Sabbath hours. Not until the sun went down on Saturday night could traffic begin. Worldly vendors liked to camp up close to the walls, spread out their wares, attract attention of many on top of the wall or near the gates, or any who might need to enter or depart during the Sabbath hours. Therefore, to remove this distraction or infringement, for several furlongs beyond the walls, there was established the holy Sabbath ground, or holy place, on which worldly vendors could not camp. How did the Roman army stand? On the holy Sabbath ground, they placed their idolatrous standards, flags, and banners and symbols, or jabbed them into the ground to announce the takeover by Rome. The Roman standard equivalent of our flag was the mark or symbol of the authority of Rome. Pagan Rome was a union of religious and civil power. Pagan Rome was a union of sun worship and civil authority, so that the standards bore on them the symbols of the sun and other things. Jesus explained to his followers in Matthew 24:15 that when they should see Rome place its mark of authority, its symbol of sun worship on their holy Sabbath ground, they would know that it was time for them to flee from the city to the mountains. Not until we understand this significant circumstance are we ready to comprehend the second application to the end-time prophecies in the dual application of Matthew 24:15. All right, let's look at the second or end-time application of Matthew chapter 24:15. In Matthew chapter 24:3, the disciples ask a dual question. When shall these things be? In terms of the destruction of Jerusalem. What shall be the sign of thy coming and the end of the world? Jesus gave them a dual answer. Great Controversy 25 says the prophecy which he uttered was twofold in its meaning. While foreshadowing the destruction of Jerusalem, it prefigured also the terrors of the last great day. The first application was to occur in their day, but the greater fulfillment was to be at the end of the world. The Savior's prophecy concerning the visitation of judgments upon Jerusalem is to have another fulfillment, of which that terrible desolation was but a faint shadow. In the fate of the chosen city, we may behold the doom of a world that has rejected God's mercy and trampled upon his law. Great Controversy 36. The end-time fulfillment is the greater or primary fulfillment of Matthew 24:15-16. But the same warning that applied to the Jews will apply to God's people in the end time. As he warned his disciples of Jerusalem's destruction, giving them a sign of the approaching ruin, that they might make their escape, so he warned the world of the day of final destruction and has given them tokens of its approach, that all who will may flee from the wrath to come. What sign did Jesus give? What is the warning that is the token of its approach? The sign, the warning, the token is found in Matthew 24:15-16. When ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, papal Rome, trampling on God's holy Sabbath ground, spoken of by Daniel the prophet in Daniel 2, stand in the holy place, placing its mark of authority, a Sunday law, in the very country which is the headquarters of God's remnant people, whoso readeth, let him understand. Then let him which be in Judea among God's people flee into the mountains, according to Matthew 24:15-16. And this paragraph is just decoding or talking about a clear exposition of what Matthew 24:15-16 says about the Sunday law. In reading Matthew 24:15 and 16, abomination of desolation, meaning the papal Rome, trampling on God's holy ground, the Sabbath, and talking about it being spoken of Daniel the prophet in Daniel chapter 2, standing in the holy place or placing its mark of authority, a Sunday law, in the very country which is the headquarters of God's remnant people. As the siege of Jerusalem by Roman armies was the signal for flight to Judean Christians, so the assumption of power on the part of our nation, the United States of America, in the decree enforcing the papal Sabbath will be a warning to us. It will then be time to leave the large cities, preparatory to leaving the smaller ones for retired homes in secluded places among the mountains. This is 5 Testimonies 464-465. Although many states in the United States have Sunday laws or blue laws on the books, the nation has never yet ventured to legislate a national Sunday law. Other countries have local or even national Sunday laws, but the United States of America has not yet done so because the Constitution forbids it. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion. Great Controversy 442. Only in flagrant violation of these safeguards to the nation's liberty can any religious observance be enforced by civil authority. Great Controversy 442. When our country shall repudiate every principle of its constitution, we may know that the end is near. Testimonies, Volume 5, 451. By virtue of the religious freedom and prosperity, the United States has been the headquarters of the remnant people who keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. It has been the means by which they could take the gospel with its 3 angel messages to all the world over this last century. This fact brings the United States of America into the focus of end-time prophecy. Prophecy focuses on God's people all the way through history. The Jews were God's people in the Old Testament, and today it is God's people upon whom prophecy focuses in Revelation 13 and Daniel 12. As the Jews were the focus of the warning of Matthew 24:15, so again at the end of this world's history, it is the remnant people in the United States who shall also be warned by that same prophecy and its fulfillment as a sign or token for them to flee the desolation to come. Therefore, a national Sunday law in the United States of America is the primary end-time fulfillment of Matthew 24:15, and it is the beginning of the end-time scenario timelines of Daniel 12:7-12. A national Sunday law in the United States begins the end-time scenario.